Welcome to the Signal Caller. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, along with Solo Lopez, the infamous one, I guess. We're gonna to break down. We'll break down quarterbacks. We've been breaking down a bunch of quarterbacks here. The last one we did was Spencer Rattler, and now kind of the one that everybody has been waiting for has been what we're gonna say about Jaden Daniels.
One of the big three.
One of the big three. I will be breaking down the 2022 game he did. He had against Alabama, and that was the game where I really kind of noticed the big jump in his ability. And we'll talk about that and talk about that in this episode. But that one will be on for members only. So members only. We give a lot. I give a lot of free content. Hey, light bill got to get put on. So if you want to see that one, you got to go and maybe become a member, and there'll be some good videos on there as well. All 22 coaches film for you guys to kind of look at and dissect. You can't get that thing everywhere, so hopefully you enjoy that. But we had a good time breaking down and looking over the film of Jaden Daniels, and here he is right now.
That's what he does to the end zone for Lacey. Got it. Touchdown. Here's Daniels on fourth down. Gonna launch it to the end zone. Neighbors holds it in again. But he can't wear number 7 because he's an offensive tackle, so he's wearing the patch. Daniels downfield and right into the arms of Daniels against the 4-man rush. Throws downfield. Looking for Thomas again. He's got it. And LSU strikes back. This time a 4-man rush. Quarterback run right up the middle. Goes Jaden Daniels. He's got the first down and more. Daniels hunting the pylon. Down the sideline into the red zone. Daniels, he's going to take a shot. Kyron Lacey. He's got it. That's an LSU touchdown.
He's showing you his skills on full display tonight.
This might be a free play. Jaden Daniels, he's going to take a shot. Why not? It was a neutral zone infraction. The catch made. Daniels looking downfield. He wants a shot for Brian Thomas into the end zone. Touchdown. Quarterback draw. The C's part. There goes Daniels again. He's looking for the end zone. Touchdown. They'll try to run for it, but Diggs, or rather Daniels, hopping over tacklers, and there he goes again. Jaden Daniels.
All right, so Jaden Daniels, LSU quarterback, started off at Arizona State. Obviously, we all know it's from San Bernardino, California. The guy is a tremendously gifted, passer, runner, kind of do it all kind of guy. I think the game that really kind of, for me, when I was looking at film, that really, I want to say a little bit of 2022. I didn't want to just jump on the Heisman year, and I thought the game against Alabama at home, they won it in overtime. They won it in overtime. He's going against Bryant Young. Bryant Young was actually in the back. Bryant Young of the Raiders was in the backfield every single play. I don't know where that is now. Hopefully,
Where's that guy at?
Hey, hopefully AP can get it out of him. They had the guy. I mean, the guy, the rookie from the Lions, Branch, is on the Alabama team. Like, they really, in that game, Solo, they really beat the hell out of him. They really did. And I think that his ability to kind of stand up through all the hits, not just the sacks, but the hits after you throw and all those things like that, and deliver the football and make big plays, and he won it on a read option where he faked to the running back and ran for the touchdown to win the game and ice it in overtime. I think that's where we all know the ability is there, but he kind of put it on full display then, and then he exploded on the scene here in 2023.
Yeah. This was not. He did not have Joe Burrow's LSU team. to put up these types of numbers around. He had Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas. Obviously, a lot of people think it's going to be a first or second rounder, but outside of that, you're not looking at a guy that has, all these generational talents at wide receiver, all these generational talents at, loaded across this board. And he still produced, won a Heisman. And I think it's only him and Joe Burrow at quarterback for LSU, right? For Heisman Trophy winners.
I don't think they have another one. I don't.
Yeah, I don't think so either, because Marcus Russell never won the Heisman. So, and he's one of the only other prominent LSU quarterbacks in recent memory. But he did not have Joe Burrow's LSU team, and he was still absolutely phenomenal back there. He's one of the top 3 prospects in this draft for a reason. He didn't work out at the combine. He didn't need to. Any of the top 3 guys are not going to. But obviously, the one concern moving forward is that, why didn't he weigh in? It seemed like he doesn't want that to be held against him. If he weighs in between 185, 195 pounds, anything under 200, like you've said before, might be an issue with that. So we are hoping that by the time his pro day rolls around, that he has gained maybe 15, 20 pounds of muscle, or just 15 or 20 healthy pounds, to be able to bring his size up, because he is a gifted thrower, a gifted passer, a gifted decision maker. But he does, I would say he's a good runner as it relates to like being able to rush the football and be able to make those correct reads when to take off. But I would not say he is a very elusive runner when it comes to taking shots, because he takes some very gnarly hits in college when he runs the football. And being his size, if he doesn't gain weight and learn how to slide at the next level and learn how to really get out of the way of some of those and not take those on full force, might cause a lot of teams concern at the next level. I mean, not enough not to draft him, obviously, but it would be a game plan to try to get your hands on him like that if he runs recklessly, as he has during last year's Heisman run.
I mean, there are times where, and you saw it in 2023 season, where he runs up the middle on a scramble and he just leaves the ground for some reason to jump, and then he gets pounded and he gets hit to the floor. It gets hit to the ground, and I'm like, why are we leaving the ground? I mean, he's not leaping into the end zone. He just and it's not like close to getting a first down. He just leaps into the air and listen, I like cartoons too, but like gravity's a thing in real life, so let's not do that. I kind of want to see this kid play for a long period of time, but as far as him, like, like if you have to, if you're the Washington Commanders, you want to bring him to Nationals Park and have somebody show him how to slide. I mean, that could be a thing. Because I mean, because him at that weight, I mean, even if he was 225, 230 at 6'4", like, you still do not want to be taking. I mean, those hits, as big and as strong, and we saw how big and strong Cam Newton is recently. Even as big and strong as Cam Newton is, you don't want to take those hits. You don't want your quarterback taking those hits. So I think the sliding part of it, they're having that decision making to slide, know when to slide, know when to go out of bounds, and know when it's a playoff game and you may have to take that hit. That's something that he has to kind of think about as well, as far as that goes. But I mean, overcoming obstacles, he has moved. I mean, like, everybody talked about, hey, so and so left this conference and so and so. I mean, all these guys are transfers. Like, Penix is a transfer. Penix is a transfer. We live in a transfer portal age. Penix is a transfer. Bo Nix is a transfer. And Jay Daniels is a transfer. They had a lot of issues that were.
Caleb Williams is a transfer.
Caleb Williams is a transfer. They had some issues at ASU. AP doesn't really talk about those issues at ASU, but there were some issues at ASU as far as like compliance and stuff like that. But maybe you had a bunch of NFL guys playing college football, and at that time they had a bunch of rules that may or may not have gotten in the way of their success. But they had a really good team. They had by Brandon Ayuk, they had some pieces there with him. Really good recruiting class for ASU. Left ASU, went to LSU. And he went right into the belly of the beast because LSU is in there with Georgia, Ole Miss,
Yeah,
Alabama, all those things like
part of
that.
it.
So, he's going to get more credit for what he does there than anybody else who plays anywhere else in the country. I think the one thing that before I go into what I'm going to say, you had a theory about his weight that you talked about in Twitter Spaces about like people just. Oh, I'm sure we could just put on that weight easily. He might be coming.
Yeah, it's not that easy. It's not a matter of a 19 or 20-year-old just being like, I'm going to gain 30 or 40 pounds of weight and be like a 225, 230 pound guy. Like Jaden Daniels is going to be 24 at the end of his rookie year.
Mm-hmm.
He's 23 now. He's going to be 24 next year. And that you're growing into your body at that point. You're not just gaining, irrational weight at that point just to gain it. I referenced David Boston, the old receiver from Arizona. He was absolutely phenomenal, but he came into the league or like he put on like 35 pounds of muscle and he was like 6'1", and his frame just could not handle it. Jaden Daniels is not a big guy. He's not CJ Stroud. He's not that size. He doesn't have that type of frame. Your frame will not allow you to just gain weight recklessly, even if it's a healthy athletic amount of weight. Your style changes. Your style of running might change. Your capacity to have your burst might change, and your body might just not be built for 230 pounds, 225 pounds. Like Mahomes, like these guys were way like thicker in their playing days, even in their college days. Even Baker Mayfield, like if you just look at some of the smaller quarterbacks like Russell Wilson or Baker Mayfield, like even these guys were much thicker on heavier frames than Jaden Daniels. So even looking at in terms of like a 6'2", 215 or 219 pound JJ McCarthy, he's way bigger than Jaden Daniels. I would argue way stronger too. So I would say that that's probably the reason he didn't weigh in at the combine, because he probably was still only pushing maybe 195 at that time. And so you didn't even really want him around other quarterbacks that were much larger, especially like maybe a Joe Milton like that. They don't want that like side by side comparison out there. And even Penix is pretty slight. And so it might, it won't be to that detriment for that. But if you're looking at Penix and his body frame, and if he's 215 pounds versus Jaden Daniels and his body frame when he's 195, it's going to be held back against him regardless of where he's at under 200 pounds. Media is going to latch onto that. And so I understand why they probably wanted to wait to see if he could gain as much muscle as he could, because Bryce Young did the same thing. So we're hoping that he gains, a healthy amount. But even if he plays at like 200 to 205 and his listed playing weight was 185, you're still looking at 20 pounds in the span of 8 months, or a year even. And it's not just like you're super young and you're going to grow into your weight. Not at 23 and 24. That's not how it works. You get bigger naturally, obviously. People get bigger over their years, but you don't want to get that kind of big over the course of an NFL playing career. You want to stay as conditionally balanced as you can, and gaining that much weight could be detrimental to his play style and his health. If we're being honest, like if he gains 30 pounds of muscle between last year and 2 years from now, are his legs going to be the same? Are his capacity to take hits, are they going to be the same? Is he going to be as healthy as he might have been? Is he going to be able to take any of those hits that he did in college?
Does it change his throwing motion if he gets that way too? I mean, I wonder if he can get anywhere between 205 and 215 pounds. I think that's what you're looking for. We're talking about his ability to absorb punishment, because you could bring back any offensive line in history of the National Football League. That's an all-time great one. You can get Anthony Munoz and clone him or whatever you want to do, but eventually your quarterback is going to take hits in the National Football League. The defensive coordinators are not going to allow him to sit back there and and just get sliced and diced, if you will. Rich Eisen, he likes when he goes to the combine, he likes to come back with his top 5 rumors of the draft, and he said some people have Jaden as their first quarterback, but he's definitely number 2. Like he's consistently the number 2 quarterback in the draft, on the draft board. So that's something to look at as well. Like that he is a guy who is not going to go past Washington. So what that means for the Raiders is interesting. I just did a show today with Ryan Holmes. We were talking to him, obviously doing the Raiders, and I put on Raiders podcast. And I kind of think along the same lines as him sometimes. In this instance, that like, are there really going to be 3 consecutive quarterbacks? Like nobody's gonna budge, and nobody's gonna like, gonna pull the trigger on Marvin Harrison Jr. Like nobody's gonna, those 3 guys, like nobody's gonna pull the trigger on them before the Falcons. I'm sorry, before the Cardinals can get them at 4. Like that's gonna be, that's one interesting part of it to me. Like I think he goes 2. Who knows? Maybe he goes 3, but like that's where like the draft can just like really take on a new life, if you will, when we're all home watching it. And for those who are making it out to the draft as well, like are people gonna just bypass that all-world talent of Marvin Harrison Jr.? It's gonna be interesting to see, because I mean, like he didn't do anything. He just he waved and said bye. I'm not sure if he even spoke to anybody, but in Indianapolis. But are there really going to be 3 straight quarterbacks? And if you have the same grade, the Patriots have the same grade on McCarthy as they do Drake May, could they trade back and still get a little bit of a haul for somebody who wants to go get Drake May or get Jaden Daniels, who we're discussing here? So I know what are your thoughts about that?
So I think that it's rare. I honestly can't even remember off the top of my head, and I'm usually really good with the draft when it has happened, where quarterbacks have gone 1, 2, 3. It might have been all the way back to the Achilles Smith year where he went to Cincinnati at number 3, and I think Donovan McNabb went 2. But I can't remember. So it doesn't happen often when there's 1, 2, 3. But the state of the quarterback right now in the NFL, I don't think it has ever been more dire than it is now. Marvin Harrison, even if Marvin Harrison is Justin Jefferson, and he comes into the league and just absolutely lights the league on fire, is he going to be more impactful than, say, a Pro Bowl quarterback? And the obvious answer is no, because Justin Jefferson is not going to single-handedly win you games when he doesn't have a good quarterback. And that was evident to what we saw last year. He was still excellent, but he didn't turn the tide of games for Minnesota the way he needed to, because you don't have Kirk Cousins out there if you're Minnesota. And so with the state of quarterback being so dire, it would appear that your only option, and this goes for the Raiders just as much as the other team, more so for the Raiders, because they don't address the quarterback in the first round. 51 years, they've done it 3 times. So it's really, really, really important for a team like the Raiders, who are in limbo constantly because of that aspect and that issue. Whereas you look at a team like Indianapolis, who went from Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck to even struggled to find a quarterback in between then, but still got Phillip Rivers on his last year, take them to the playoffs. And then Gardner Minshew came in and spelled Anthony Richardson and literally had a winning season for the Colts. And now they get to hand that winning season and that winning roster over to Anthony Richardson, who they drafted 4th overall. So it's like the state of the NFL it goes through and runs by and is all it all points to the quarterback position. And it's more so dire than it has ever been, because you have one guy at the top, then you have a gigantic gap, and then you have a bunch of other guys who are behind him. And the teams that don't have any of those guys after the gap are so far beyond being able to compete with someone like the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, let alone trying to compete with Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or those guys that come next. Even Dak Prescott, who was 2nd team All-Pro this year, who had a fantastic year. Like even these guys, Jordan Love is now ascending onto the scene. And Kyler Murray is coming back and might have Marvin Harrison Jr. and another first round pick to build around and to have that. Like you have so many teams that have quarterbacks in play that are effective, that had once, that are 2 years removed from Pro Bowl years or 3 years removed from taking their team to an 11-win season. And then you have teams like the Raiders or the Bears or the Saints that are kind of stuck in limbo because they don't really have that guy. And we had that guy for a long time who couldn't get us over the hump, who just wasn't good enough. And he wasn't good enough in New Orleans. And the Raiders don't have a good enough guy now. And the guy they brought in to replace that guy was not good enough. It's just, you have to look at it from the landscape of, can we beat Patrick Mahomes anytime, considering he's in our division? Can we beat Justin Herbert? Can we even beat Deshaun Watson in Cleveland? Can we even beat Dak Prescott or Jared Goff in Detroit? Like, can we beat any of these guys with a below average quarterback or an average quarterback without addressing that position? And it's just, it makes it so much more harder to do that if you don't have a guy. And so it doesn't happen often. I can't remember how many times it has happened for a quarterback to go all three, but all three teams need a quarterback flat out. I like Sam Howell. I haven't given up on him as a guy who can develop. But if you give me Jaden Daniels at 2 or Drake May at 2, then that's the pick. And it's just as simple as that. Like, the Patriots have always been what I've said are the most likely to trade the pick, especially now with the rumor that the Giants are trying to move up from six to get one, whereas they could probably just stay at 6 and get McCarthy or Penix if they wanted to, and that might be a little high for some people. But if you don't have a quarterback, you don't even have a race to race in. You don't even have a lane to race in. You don't have anything if you don't have a quarterback that can even get you a few wins. Like, we have to take it from the perspective of, can you win 3 or 4 playoff games with your quarterback? Yeah. And for the majority of the league, the answer is no. And so until you find that guy, the answer becomes yes, that you have the ability to do that, you're struggling way behind, more so now than ever.
3 times in 51 years. So, I mean, I think the thing I keep hearing from, some shows I do respect and some shows I don't respect, but I do like to hear different opinions. People keep talking about with the Raiders, like, what if he's a bust? What if this? What if that? It's like, who cares? We replaced Jonathan Abram. He was a bust. We replaced, other people on this team. Brian Edwards, we got, we pivoted off of that. Like, why is it Damon
Henry Ruggs, Cleveland Farrell, Sean Abraham?
I mean, it's there's so many busts off of this for this franchise. Like, why does it matter?
Why does quarterback the pick that is so much that you can't bust at quarterback because it sets your team back? All these other picks set your team back.
Yeah.
Every pick you miss on sets your team back. The capacity that, because it's quarterback or a first round pick, it doesn't matter. You have to, like, the impact that a quarterback has is so much greater than when you hit on, like, that's why when people said, like, would you trade Max Crosby if it got you like Caleb Williams? That's not even a question. That's not even a question. Like, you can't. Max Crosby is phenomenal. He's one of my favorite Raiders of all time. I love the guy. I love his effort. I love everything he represents. I love the fact that everybody references him when they talk about the best players in the defense. All the young guys coming in say, I love the way he plays, his style, everything about him is great. But if I'm getting Jaden Daniels or Drake May or Caleb Williams out of a package that sends Max Crosby somewhere else, and that's what I'm doing, because there's no greater impact than a quarterback. It's just not. And we had Khalil Mack. We had the best defensive player in football, and it did not help us win what we needed to do. And it's just as simple as that. The impact of a quarterback is greater. It just is. And it sucks that that's the way it is. Yeah. But as long as the Raiders refuse to address that position, they're just going to be falling behind for everyone else.
So looking at the years from 2019 to 2023 for Jaden Daniels, like, there is if this was a baseball player in the 90s, we would be like, is he on steroids? Like, I'm not saying that he's on performing enhancing. I'm just saying like the jump is very big. Like he went from 17 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns. He got, I mean, so the 4 years, whatever, the 4 games in 2020. Then in 2021 he went to 10 touchdowns. Left ASU for LSU. 17 touchdowns, 11 rushing because those count too. And then it jumps from 17 to 40, like to 40. The one thing that seems like it didn't change much for him is there's one outlier season where he had 10 interceptions, but it seems like turning the ball over on via the interception is not something that he does very well.
He makes good decisions.
Like he takes care of the ball very well, I should say. So at ASU he had 12 picks in 3 in 3 seasons, and one season was only 4 games, but still. And then you go to LSU, 2 seasons, over 700 attempps, and we're talking about 7 INTs. So that's really good. But the jump from and the rushing touchdowns have been there for his whole career, but 17 to 40. Are we wondering if this is Vanilla Ice? You know what I mean? If it's the one hit wonder, are we talking about like Milli Vanilli? Are we talking about like stuff like that? Like, are we worried about that part of it because he doesn't have that consistent body of work that a Caleb Williams or a Drake May? And this is probably the question that if I was in the draft room, with Dan Quinn, with with Cliff Kingsbury, I'm like, hey, look at that film really tightly, really pay attention to that film, because like I'd be worried about that part of the game with him, because that's a big jump.
Yeah. It is it's a risk. It's a scary prospect, but in that regard, I try not to judge the 1 year stuff, because he had his opportunity, and when he had it and he grew into something that was better, his tape looks a lot different in 23 than it does in 22. It just looks like an evolution of a quarterback. It really does. His decision making over the middle, it greatly increased from 22 to 23. I think his ability to take off, like where he was taking off in certain spots, I thought was better. I thought he was quicker in his decision making than he was in 23 than he was in 22. It looks like the natural progression of a quarterback, just a style of play. Now the statistics will give you concern if it's that kind of a leap, and it's like, okay, well, is it just he was a great college quarterback for that 1 year, and that might be his claim to fame as he busts out in the NFL when he's the number 2 or number 3 overall pick. I looked at this through the lens of Joe Burrow. You have to really watch him and learn about him and evaluate his tape isolated from everything. And that guy had all the negatives. It was a 1 year wonder. He had one of the most loaded offenses we've ever seen at wide receiver. When you're throwing to Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, and Terrace Marshall and Thad Moss, like when you're throwing to all these guys, like you have world-class talent. Now, how do I distinguish between that and between Tua Tagovailoa, who had an all-star cast as well, who had all the same numbers? He had just as good as numbers, I mean, like a slightly less so, but I mean, how do you distinguish between the two? And it's just breaking down the film. Now, you could look at it from a paper perspective and say, well, Tua is just as good as Joe Burrow, but then you have to watch it from a film perspective and be like, they are nowhere near as good. And I've stood on that since Tua was a sophomore in college. I never believed in his ability to be able to win consistently when it mattered the most. And we've seen that translate somewhat here in the NFL, where there have been major games that he's given up based on that. And I just didn't feel that way with Joe Burrow. And so when it comes to Jaden Daniels and his 1 year statistics, I don't feel that way, because when you break down the film and when you look at it, it really truly looks like a guy who's just finding his own style of quarterback and finding his own groove and his own confidence at that position, and really elevating his play from 1 year to the next. Now, that's a guy that works hard, and he did have the turnover to interception ratio as a freshman when it was 17 touchdowns at Arizona State. I think he only had three picks that year. Two, yeah. So you saw that ability early, even as a really young player. So, I think he's a good decision maker. I think he was an exceptional decision maker last year when passing the ball, I should say, because running the ball, he needs to learn how to slide and not take those hits. And I think he'll probably jump twice in the NFL, and then he'll never jump again. I think his coaches will ream him for that, and then the impact that he might take will probably put a stop to that.
It might not even be the coaches. It might just be like, okay.
Sure.
I just got hit by I just got hit by Patrick Queen, and I can't feel my right leg. So let me just not do that ever again, because I need to be able to do that.
By sheer getting hit about that situation.
Exactly. I do think when he's in the open field, he just reminds me of Lamar as far as that goes. Like, I mean, I don't force a player comp on somebody. Like, I'm not gonna give you the Renfro doesn't remind me of Edelman at all. Stuff like that. People do that stuff all the time, drives me crazy. I'm not gonna force one, but I do think he runs like Lamar. I do love his deep ball. Just reminds me of Culpepper. Like, I just love how the high arching, like, just right in the breadbasket. Like, I'm not saying he is Dante Culpepper. I think he's a better prospect than Dante Culpepper. I do think he is. One thing that he's not that Dante Culpepper was just like is that tremendous thickness. Like, he is like Culpepper had that body that was really stout and thick.
Like, he was like 240 in his third year. He was huge.
Yeah, and I mean, when I went to the Holiday Bowl and I was covering it for the Student Body Right USC podcast, and I saw Caleb Williams right next to me. I was like, it's noticeable how incredibly like thick and for big he is too. And he got a little bit. He was a guy who came across a little bit taller than I thought. We got the measurables, and also from J.J. McCarthy, he came in a little bit heavier than I thought he was going to come in too. Everybody thought he was a twig, but he came in pretty thick as well. So the weight probably.
I didn't think he was that small. When I looked at McCarthy in the national title game in the playoffs, I didn't think he was a small quarterback.
Yeah, but people were saying that, and I was like, people like people watch Doug Flutie or something. And I didn't see I didn't see like him being a really small dude as far as that goes.
But then again, like, Penix doesn't look anywhere near 215 pounds either. He looks. I mean, you got to wonder.
Did he weigh at the combine?
That's, I think, what they have him listed as at projected was 6'3", I think 215.
It's a good. Let me check it real quick. The guy, the one dude who I love, underrated guy to follow for NFL stuff is Chris Robinson from Yahoo. I believe that's his name, Chris Robinson. But he's really good. He's just no nonsense. Talks ball. He's great. He's not an aggregator or anything like that. He's really good. But he just I can find that real quick as we go through it. But I do love his ability to throw the ball down the field. I think, I mean, he can definitely lock on sometimes, but I think everybody does that sometimes. So as far as that goes, but for me, getting the ball to Neighbors. I mean, there definitely some times where he got the ball to Neighbors for a 5-yard play, and Neighbors took it, 70 yards to the house. That's what he did. That's just what he does.
Neighbors is great.
So I'd be a little bit worried. I'd be a little bit concerned about that. I mean, is he going to a team that has that kind of weaponry? But I think, all of a sudden, I think here's my biggest thing about people who I think the term that we like to use in football, fans like to use is, oh, that team is stacked.
Yeah.
Look
at all the support he has.
Look at the support he has. I mean, what makes a team stacked is having a good quarterback. Because once Jaden Daniels steps into Washington, we're gonna know all of a sudden people are gonna go, oh man, Scary Terry. I didn't know he was that good. Of course he's that good.
Yeah.
He just he didn't have somebody, he didn't have a single caller to give him the ball. I didn't know. I didn't know that the tight end was that good. Oh yeah, I wonder who's throwing. He has somebody throwing the football now. So things
Yeah.
change when you get a quarterback. So
But yeah, and it will be imperative that they improve their offensive line no matter who they take, whether it's Drake May or Sam Howell was the most sacked quarterback of the NFL last year, and he still went out there and actually at one point was leading the league in passing yards. So that's it's important to protect that guy no matter who it is. So they got a lot of work to do, but Adam Peters is someone that I really, really wanted to run the Raiders. And so they got him pretty quickly. It was pretty all said and done with him pretty quickly. So I think they'll build that team up nicely. And so now you have Cliff and Dan Quinn and the number 2 overall pick, which presumably is going to be a quarterback, whether if it's Daniels or May. And now you have, Adam Peters running the show and taking his first general manager position.
yeah,
We'll see how that goes. The
so that
highly,
go.
highly talented executive.
We see how that goes, and I'm really excited for the draft. And as it gets closer, we get closer and closer every month. Before you know it, it'll be here. But
Yeah.
I will say, I mean, like I said, I think Jaden has a tremendous opportunity to be a guy who can win Rookie of the Year, to do all those things. He really does have that. He's gonna make. I think he makes the splash plays, but I think like him and Caleb, and we'll do Caleb as well, coming up soon too, is that we know they can make the sexy play, but sometimes the sexy play is to get down and take a sack. Like you see Peyton Manning, you saw Peyton Manning do it all the time. And we also just getting rid of the ball to the back out of the backfield. Sometimes that is the best possible play for you in that moment. And they can do that, along with all the other stuff they do. Is the sky's the limit for Jay and Daniels as well. And any team would be lucky to have him. He seems like he's ascending in the right direction, if you will.
Yeah, he has everything. He really does. I obviously I think when we talk about the weight issue, it's not a small concern, especially if he comes in under 200 pounds. That is not a small concern whatsoever. That this is a real big, athletic type of man's game, and to be under 200 pounds in a game like this is tough. When you have when you play offense. It's hard for players who are not elusive like they should be. It's hard for a quarterback who doesn't get hit a lot. It's just generally a very, very physical game when you're that small. Now, some wide receivers get away with it. A lot of the wide receivers coming in now are going to be way less than 200 pounds, but they're not going to have the ball in their hands every single game. And so I think if he peaks out at around 205, 206 maybe in that, I think he'll be fine. I think if he adds more weight than that, if he really was only 185 pounds, even 5-6 months ago, I think peak, you want to add 20 pounds, and then that's kind of where you want to stay. Anything more than that, I think is going to be detrimental to his body. If he ends up at 225 pounds or something like that, I think that's going to be really detrimental to his health, to his body. So that's the one knock I have. I think he's the best decision maker in this draft. I think his interception to turnover ratio is fantastic. Throughout his career, I think he makes great decisions. Passing the ball, I think he goes through his reads exceptionally well. I don't hold the 1 year thing against him, because it looks like he was always a good decision maker from all the way back to his freshman year at Arizona State. He seems composed. He seems calm when he's on the podium. He seems confident. His team seems to love him in terms of that. It seems like a leader. Just seems like a guy that people would be fortunate to have. And whether that's the Commanders, who have a better offensive support than say the Patriots do in that regard, or whether he drops to the Patriots and they spend 50 of their $100 million in cap space all on offense to protect him and find him some weapons. Mike Evans is already off the board. So there might be other offensive players that they might be able to bring in. Ramondre Stevenson is actually not a bad player at all, who's already over there. But they have a lot of money wrapped up in some pretty less than average receivers, and their tight ends are basically all gone now. So the Patriots have a lot of work to do on their offensive side of the ball, but there's no position in sports that will allow you to mask the deficiencies of your team other than an effective quarterback on a rookie deal. So that's the goal.
The Patriots are in the the same mental mode that Tom Brady was when he left Tampa. That they want to show that they can still be a really good team
Yeah.
without Bill Belichick. I think that's something that's pretty clear to me. As far as that goes, looking at some of the quarterbacks, it was Charles Robinson, not Chris Robinson from Yahoo Sports. Great follow for NFL stuff. Jordan Travis, 6'1", 6'1", almost 6'2", 200 pounds. Just kind of give you an idea of like some of the weight of these quarterbacks. I'm trying to see if I can find anybody else. He just listed some of the measurables for everybody, so they can just grab that stuff and be able to see it.
Yeah.
If I find Penix or find Daniels, I think Daniels didn't weigh, so he didn't do anything as far as that
Yeah.
goes.
Daniels didn't do anything at all.
Yeah, and McCarthy was 219, which is that's. I tell you, man, that kid's about to get drafted pretty high.
Yeah.
6'2".
He's gonna be a top 15 pick. I think there's too many in the quarterback.
Okay, I do got Penix. I do have Penix. Penix is 6'2", 216. Bo Nix is 6'2", 214. The arms, the hands. Caleb Williams has ridiculous hands for somebody who's, I guess, hand size. I guess that was one of the big things people were surprised with Caleb Williams'
Penix,
hand.
right? Penix also, right? And then someone
Penix as well. Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, the combine. I mean, we might do an updated one just because after his pro day, because I think that's when at LSU, and he'll do all that stuff on a pro day. Don't forget, members, if you want to see it's not if you want to see, because you want to see Jay Daniels' breakdown of that epic game he had last year against Alabama. I'll definitely break that down for you and talk about his performance, give you some color commentary as far as that goes. I did want to say loved Diamond Notes with Peter Gammons. I loved a lot of some of the stuff from ESPN back in the day. I had a chance to really meet and to visit and go to his home, Stuart Scott, which was actually one of them things I'll never forget in my life. I'll never forget those. And part of the reasons why I do this is because of that meeting I had with him. But Mort passing away, I think that's like really something that is kind of sad to me. And I think the one thing about him, and I think the cool thing about it was I did not realize, obviously we don't know people who knows people, but I did not realize him and Daniel Jeremiah were that close. I did not realize that. And like, I don't know if you saw the video of Daniel Jeremiah breaking down during the combine and talking about him. I thought it was really like, when you see the human side of people, I thought that was really cool. And I think the one thing I remember about him back in the day with sports is was before Twitter, before all the other stuff, the aggregators and the Dove Kleinmans, if you will, of the world. But it was back when, because I used to work at ESPN, it was about getting it right. It wasn't about being first. I think now people just want to be first, and if they're wrong, who cares? They'll just erase the tweet. But but back then it was about being right.
A lot of the time, they won't even erase the tweet; they'll just leave it up for the engagement.
Exactly. So,
integrity on social media. Integrity.
And he was great. He was great. So I mean, it's just cool to talk about because he left a lasting impression on other people, on a lot of people. Died at 72 years old yesterday, I guess.
Rest in peace, man. He was synonymous with all the halftime reports for the NFL halftime shows, man. Like Sunday night football, Chris Berman would do the 2-minute report, and then he'd send it over to Mort, and Mort would do the sideline stuff, do the analysis, do the stuff, and it's synonymous with that halftime music. That's what I always equate Chris Berman and Mortensen to, is that the it's iconic, man. That duo was iconic, and I grew up on it, and it was just that he had an iconic voice.
John Clayton too, man. John Clayton, rest in peace.
Clayton passed away in 2022. Yeah, he was also like,
he was good. He was good.
Like,
he was great. He was great.
The Sports Center commercials for Clayton were epic. They were on brand for everything. I love when Mortensen would talk about his Eagles. Like, it's just, it sucks, man. Like, getting older is tough because you start to see all these guys that were all in your childhood. They start to move on, and your time, our time comes for everybody. Time comes for everybody, and it sucks that when you get older that you have to say goodbye to a lot of these guys, and you just respect their footprints and their gigantic impact on the industry and as a whole, and how different it is now, and how different it would be had those guys not chosen their paths to be in the industry, especially with him.
Yeah, no question about it, man. No question about it. All right, Raider Nation. The search for the quarterback continues, and the signal caller will be here for you on that front. You definitely, for those who catch us on Twitter Spaces, you can do that as well. I gotta figure out. I don't know how to do it besides playing it and then recording it on my microphone. Then I gotta figure out how to get some of those Twitter Spaces, like maybe like a 20-minute version of it on YouTube for you guys, because there's some really great conversation. Now, some of it is yelling and screaming, people calling people names and doing other stuff, but like the real good football stuff that's in there is some real good conversation that I want to try to get to. So once I figure out how to do that, I'll get that out to you as well. But don't forget, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. We got a lot of stuff coming to you between whether it's USC, whether it's Raiders or the signal caller, and so talking about these quarterbacks, and then don't forget, man, you got the membership, man. You got to swipe that card if you want to see that. You want to see that Jay and Daniels breakdown, and we'll also be doing that with Drake May and Mr. Caleb Williams. All right, folks, peace. Signal caller, sign out.
Hero play. 4-6. To sheer joy.
Jiminy.
Austin Jones in the backfield, and here goes Caleb Williams. Go deep, young man, and why not? Touchdown, Brendan Rice.
Jiminy.
To keeper. Williams running for his life. Fires to the end zone. Jump ball. Touchdown. Rice open that time. Unorthodox, but deadly.
Play was blown up because of Tooley. 4th and 1.
3rd down and 10 with USC trailing 14-0. Williams. Deep shot. Receiver. It's caught. Brendan Rice into the end zone for a touchdown. A moon ball.
The ball, he's not been targeted yet. And Caleb is looking for just about anybody. This is where he really is devastating, when he starts becoming a maestro. Look out, there it is, touchdown. Dorian Singer. Williams, plenty of time, now he's running out. Wow. Now he sees green grass, and the corner busted coverage, touchdown. Brendan